How are you doing?
Uh, I'm doing great. Welcome to the stream.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be
So,
here. Thank you.
yeah, so firstly, I wanted to thank you for doing this. And
No worries.
second, I just wanted to congratulate you on the success that you have had with your book and growing the audience on Twitter in the past couple of months.
No, thanks a lot. It's been a journey, but it's been fun as well.
Great. So, what we can do is we can start with an introduction. So, how about you tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I'm Tom, and I've been freelancing as a web developer for 11 years, coming up 12 years now. And I just started doing it straight out of university. Really, I knew that I couldn't work for a boss. I knew that I wanted to, run my own schedule and things like that. So I went straight into freelancing after leaving university, and here I am today, still doing it.
Great. So, did you actually start taking up freelance projects while you were studying?
No, I didn't actually. I was too busy partying and studying to do any work. So I waited until I left. So I started pretty late, really. So I was 22 by the time I started freelancing. Completed the studies, got straight into that, and yeah, just took it from there.
Wow. And how did you manage to get your first project?
Yeah, so this is the first thing basically is what I recommend everybody does is just tell everyone the skills that you have. So even though I didn't have a proper client until after my studies, I was still like doing a bit of web development on the side just for my own learning, just trying to learn how to code on my own, basically. So I discovered WordPress and I had these specific skills within that. I could code themes and I used to watch a lot of tutorials on CSS tricks and things like that. So because I was really interested in WordPress, the first thing that I did was just tell everyone I know that I can do this and I'm going freelance, I'm available. And yeah, so the first lead then came via a contact of my dad. I just said to him, look, if you know anyone that needs a website, especially if it's WordPress, let me know. I'm the man. And yeah, it just one of his business contacts essentially. We were just having a little conversation about something else. They mentioned that they had a WordPress website. It needed some amendments, and my dad, because I'd told him, remembered, to think of me, and he introduced us, and yeah, the rest was history.
Oh, that's such a nice way to start. It's something like you start with you believe that you can do something, you tell other people about it, and then you just start getting projects and you learn while you are at it. It's also I also started my freelance journey in a very similar way. But what happened? The only difference was that I did it while I was studying. So I was also studying computer engineering, and
Nice.
I got a few freelance. I mean, I started with the council websites. So in colleges in India, you usually have this college councils, which are like special interest group for say literary arts and computer science and all those things.
Mhm.
And I was just lucky to get to work on one of those websites, and soon enough other projects also followed, and I was slowly started to get recognition as that guy who could make websites for councils.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, then it was the similar journey as you just mentioned.
exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with in the beginning. They think, where the hell am I going to find this first client? But then once you get over that first step, once you put the word out there, everything else snowballs from that point. So yeah, I think we've had a pretty similar path in that respect.
Hmm. And this first project that you mentioned, did you actually get paid to do that, or it was just like a voluntary work?
No, no, I got paid to do it. It was a pretty low rate to start with, but obviously when you're starting out, you kind of accept that because you're learning on the job as well, right? So it doesn't matter if not getting paid the top dollars straight away, and it's not
Hmm.
realistic to expect that.
So tell me about the feeling that you got when you got your first paycheck by doing this freelance project.
I was just like, I don't know, it was kind of weird. It's I'd never had a proper job, so I wasn't used to a regular paycheck anyway. So doing it freelancing and having the pay come in, not the same every month was normal really to me, or became normal to me anyway. But yeah, it just felt great. I felt as if I'd achieved something. I guess I felt my eyes opening up to the possibilities of this, to be able to work for yourself, to be able to fend for yourself, and it felt yeah, quite empowering.
Hmm. And we know that you are an expert in WordPress, and you also started your first project as a WordPress developer. Have you also dived into other technology stack, or WordPress is something that you always stuck to?
Yeah, so I've stuck with WordPress for a long time, but in the last couple of years, I've spread out into a lot of JavaScript as well. So doing a lot of Next.js, Gatsby, and things like that, and pairing that up with WordPress. So doing a lot of headless WordPress stuff. And that's something that's really interesting me at the minute. Using WordPress for the content management and the strengths of that, and how good of a content management system it is, how familiar people are with that, but then layering on top, a really performant, fast, modern JavaScript front end. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going on the technology side at the minute.
So do you think that you're going to stick with WordPress for long, or are you now looking to explore, looking to move to other technology stack?
No, I'll stick with WordPress because it's what I know best and it's what everyone knows me for. So even though I'm going down a specific path with WordPress, like the headless stuff, so using JavaScript with WordPress, so I get the best of both worlds with that. I get to leverage, the reputation that I've got in the WordPress world, but I still get to satisfy my own needs of exploring new technologies in the JavaScript side of things. So yeah, I think I'm going to stick with that for the long haul.
And how does the market look for WordPress in the coming time?
I think it looks good. I think that what's the statistics? It's like it powers so much of the web, like 60% perhaps, or maybe even more than that. I'm not sure of the exact figure right now. It rises every single day, it looks like. But I mean, there's markets within markets in WordPress.
Yeah.
So you've obviously got the really low end stuff where people might just want a developer to modify an existing theme or plugin or something like that. And then you've got like the real upper end side where people want, full blown custom integrations and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of demand for WordPress stuff, and there's a lot of markets within markets. And I think if I told anyone to enter WordPress now, I would say go into one of those markets within the market, not just WordPress as a whole.
And that is so true. The kind of ecosystem that WordPress had built around it is just phenomenal. And I remember that when I started making websites, WordPress was also the first thing that I picked up. And the reason why I did it was I just wanted to learn something outside of college, which was actually being used in the industry. Because what they teach us at college in India is just it's like Indus Valley education, which is very dated. They don't never really update it. And WordPress was just like a natural choice because I remember at that time, which is about 5 or 6 years ago, the stat was like 60% of the websites on the internet are built with WordPress. And it was such an obvious choice, and also and it was not that difficult to begin with. There were so many resources out there. And the communities are also great. There are so many forums. If you get stuck with something, you can always reach out to them, and that's how I usually learn things. I try to do it, and if I have questions, I will just post it online. Other people will help.
Yeah.
So I can definitely agree to this point that the ecosystem that is there around WordPress is great. And also in the recent times, I wanted to move my product disrupt blog, which has been hosted on Medium right from the start. I wanted to move it to something which I could own. And when I was looking at the options, there were so many things available out there, which I could have used so many other headless CMSs. There's Ghost. There are other drag and drop builders as well. But WordPress seemed like a very clean choice. There were some beautiful themes available out there. I had some experience with it, so it was like a no-brainer to just go with it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good platform. Like I think it gets a bad rap because it's used that much. So people say, oh yeah, WordPress is not secure, but if you do the right things, you can secure it. But I think the reason people, there's so many horror stories about it being hacked because so many people are using it. All the other blogging platforms, not a lot of people are, it's the numbers are a lot lower than what, WordPress is. So yeah, it gets a bad rap sometimes, but I think it's a solid platform if you know what you're doing with it and you keep it lean. Don't stack plugins, for instance, that might not be getting updated as regularly as what you would like and things like that.
And I also think that they are evolving with time, because in the recent times, I've seen that they are also sort of understanding this no-code movement, and they're
Mhm.
trying to integrate a lot of things in their WordPress.com version, which is you can now easily have different kind of layouts. They recently updated their editor to Gutenberg, and
Yep.
which is like just a drag and drop blocks builder, which gives you blocks that you can do anything with. You can integrate payments and subscriptions and everything. So
Mhm.
that's great. Anyway, so coming back to the topic, for how long have you been doing this?
So this 2021 is my 12th year of being a freelance developer. Um, so yeah, it's been it seems short and long at the same time. So yeah, I've been doing it for a long time, but yeah, it's been good. It's been good to me. I can't complain, and I enjoy it. I enjoy staying small. I think there's a lot to be said about being able to just get the projects that you want to work on without having to rely on anyone else, and managing other people can be tough. So yeah, it's been good to me.
Yeah, and I also read your recent year interview, and I could clearly see
Yeah.
that you have had a breakout year. You have seen a lot of success in this year. Uh, what would you say were some of the key things that actually helped you made this year successful, despite of being a year of pandemic?
Yeah, I think I was kind of lucky in the fact that I've been doing this for a long time. So I had a lot of ongoing projects that I could continue to work on through the pandemic. I think a lot of a lot of people stopped spending when it first hit because they didn't really know how things were going to pan out. But then I think eventually, especially in the digital sector, people realized that they needed to start investing again because that's where all the attention was going online, basically. So people can't go to the shops, but they can go to your e-commerce store. So I think being a developer, was lucky really in the pandemic. Um, so yeah, I think that's kind of what helps. That's what helped me through to have success in that part of my business. But yeah, I mean, in the other parts of it, I also like went into trying to build a bit of an audience on Twitter, selling digital products and things like that, just to diversify a little bit and to try and help other people out. So yeah, I mean, I think the combination of all those things is kind of what contributed to a pretty decent 2020 for me.
Mm-hmm. And tell me if I'm right. So you're not really invested before into building digital products and building an audience online, but you
No.
did it this year and you did it quite phenomenally. Uh, uh, so what was the reason that you decided that you want to dive into this?
Yeah, well, I actually started thinking about building the audience before the pandemic, but the pandemic just made it even more probably important. So yeah, I think it was about maybe August 2019 when I thought, people were coming to me and asking for advice about freelancing basically, because I've done it for a long time and I've had relative success in it. So people were naturally coming to me and asking for advice on, how should I price? Where do you get clients? How should I position myself? Things like that. And I realized then that my strength is in those areas, teaching other freelancers how to be successful through my experience. So yeah, I thought, you know what, I'm going to start, instead of just having these private conversations with the people that are asking for the advice, I'll start trying to put it out to a wider audience. And Twitter was the tool of choice because yeah, I can be consistent with that. I prefer writing than anything else. So tweets to me were easier to come by than the visual stuff. So started tweeting, started building the audience, had a few things go pretty viral, and then yeah, it just built up over time. And then when the pandemic came down in March, and places started getting locked down, I thought, I'm going to really accelerate this, try to get more people interested in what I've got to say, try and help more people, try and reach more people. And the idea was always to create products at some stage. It was just a case of when. And yeah, the first thing that I did was just create a free ebook and see if people liked it, and they did. And then I just started carrying on tweeting and just latching on to what people found valuable, and then the other products then came after that. So yeah, that's kind of how it all played through.
And what is the free ebook about?
So the free ebook's called 10 Steps to Becoming a Better Freelancer. So it essentially acts as a primer really on all the steps that I took to get to the point where I am today. And yeah, I gave it away for free because I think it's nice to have an asset that you can direct people to that maybe can't pay for something at this moment in time. And also it gets me a database of people that are interested in this kind of thing for any future promotions and things like that. So that's the reason why I came up with that one to start with.
And I guess your second ebook was about pricing freelance projects, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, and the idea for that came from the viral thread.
Yeah, so it's the thread that started it all, right? I
Yeah,
believe
essentially.
by now you must have got about what 60 or 70K likes on it.
I think it's got something like close to 40K likes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets likes every day because people keep coming to the profile and liking it and retweeting it. So it's been a pretty evergreen piece of promotion for me.
So what is the book about? Tell us what's inside the book.
Yeah, so basically the book's a deep dive extension of the thread. So the thread, obviously, it was just an off the cuff thing where I just basically summarize how I price my freelance projects and how I've done it over the years, how my view on pricing's changed, from the beginning to where I am now and things like that, because I just thought it'd be useful for people to read. It's pretty clear cut and abrupt and not very wishy-washy, and I think that's what people liked. They liked how specific it was. So yeah, the book's an extension of that. Basically, it's 30,000 words rather than maybe 500 of the principles and the exact methodologies, the pros and cons of different ways to price projects, the overriding mindsets that I think you need to price projects well. And then at the end, I kind of provide a framework to allow you to give better prices.
Mm-hmm. And can you give us a walkthrough or a summary of how you price your freelance projects?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, this has changed over the years, and it's still. I think that the main problem with pricing freelance projects is that people think that there's one magic formula that works for every project, for every client, and for every freelancer, and that's not the case. Everyone's looking for that silver bullet, but it doesn't exist. So the way that I price my projects is to take everyone on an individual basis. And first of all, you've got to look at yourself. You've got to think, what's the value of hiring me? What do I bring to the table specifically? And how does that affect the price? How does it inform it? And then the second thing that I look at is who's the client? What are they doing? How much money are they making? How much money do they spend on advertising and things like that? And then the third thing is looking at the projects on an individual basis as well. So what are they trying to achieve? What are the outcomes that they want? And what's the value of those outcomes to that business? So yeah, it's sounds complex, but it's that the overall overriding summary is that you should always take value into consideration, whether you're pricing by the hour, by fixed price, retainer, whatever. Always consider those three things. Always look at the value, and then go from there.
Mm-hmm. And what are the different pricing models that you have?
Yeah, so the ones that we talk about in the book, essentially the ones that most people use and that they will be familiar with. So you've obviously got your hourly billing, you've got fixed price billing, fixed price projects, sorry. You've got value-based pricing, which I touch on. We have retainer models and day rate are the five that I focus on because I think that those are the ones that most people will be familiar with or have used in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the ones that I've used over the course of my freelancing career as well.
And over the top of your head, which of this model do you use most frequently?
Yeah, so the model that's most similar to what I use is value-based pricing, where I'm thinking about value all the time. So a value-based price is essentially a fixed price, but you've thought about value at every step. I mean, one of the traditional ways that people teach value-based pricing is to try and extract numbers from the client. So let's say if, I don't know, it costs them £50 per lead in advertising, and you think that your work's going to get them 100 leads, that means that the project's worth £5,000, £5,000 to them, sorry. And then what you would then do is, say, well, I can easily charge 10% of that fee, which would be, £500 for the work that I'm going to do, because I'm going to get them a 10x ROI on their investments. So that's the too long didn't read version of value-based pricing. But the way that I try and do it is to, no matter, because sometimes you can't always use value-based pricing, especially when you start out. A lot of people are not perceptive to that methodology. I think it's easier in certain countries as well. Like in the US, I think value-based pricing works really well. But in the UK, especially when you're starting out, people want an hourly rate. They want a daily rate. And it's going to be difficult for you then to say to that client who is not perceptive to value-based pricing that, to go in with that approach. So the way that obviously I do it now is that way, but in the start, it wasn't that way. It was, more day rate, more hourly rate, but I considered the value of hiring me specifically. And that's the important part. So not just providing a price that someone else is charging. Think about, my individual value, the value of my service to the client, and the value of the project, in its own right, before you give a price, whether that's hourly billing, daily billing, fixed price, retainer, or value-based.
And when you are pitching this value-based pricing to one of your clients, do you actually give them all of this calculations and stats that you just mentioned, that you would look at what a particular lead is going to charge them, and then you would see how much your work is going to, how many leads your work is going to convert, and then you can get this estimate? Do you actually give out this estimates and the way that you have calculated to the client?
No, you don't have to tell someone that you're value-based pricing the project. Like the idea is in this methodology is to extract this information through conversation, and then do your own calculations behind the scenes, and then present a price. But then if you want to present the figures, you can do, because sometimes if they can see the value, then they can justify the price in their own heads. They can tell the story that this price is worth it because the facts are in front of them. But yeah, typically I sometimes don't even go that deep. Sometimes I don't even go that deep of getting those figures. I just think about the value in the way that I talked about before. So I think I'm the best option available for this person. The next best option, it's completely, my service is completely different to what theirs is. It can't be compared. So I can then come up with my own price, because the value of hiring me is higher in this for this client, for this project, than it is of hiring the next person. So sometimes I'll just pick a price based on the value of the things that we discussed before, rather than going deep into extracting these figures from the client, because sometimes they haven't got the figures.
Mm-hmm. So let's try to explore this a little more, and we can do this with an example. So say, for example, I'm your customer, and I'm an e-commerce platform. I want to build an e-commerce platform, and I want to sell premium clothing over there.
Yep.
And I want to basically build a business. I've been running this premium clothing business offline for quite some time. I have experience with clothes. I can deliver good quality, but I've never really dived into online. And because of the pandemic, I want to start an online business. So I reach out to you and I tell you that, hey Tom, I want to build this online business. I already have an offline business which was doing quite well before the pandemic. And now I just want to start selling things online. How do we go about it, and what are the things that you would ask me? Or I'm just curious, how do you approach this?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing that I want to know is what outcomes you're looking to achieve. So let's say, obviously you want to make sales, obviously you want to have some success online, obviously you want to go from 0 to 1 in terms of being a shop that's only does physical sales to doing digital sales as well. So that's, I can picture the overall picture, but I want to know what your targets are. So I might say to you, look, how many sales per month do you want to make from this website?
Well, I would say when I had an offline store, it was just people who walk into my store and buy the products. But now with online, I think I can widen my reach to at least a few cities. So
Hmm.
maybe I want to at least have 10 sales per day, and which would amount to 300 sales in a month, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. If there was 30 days in the month, yeah. So let's say so you're looking at making, yeah, three. So you want to make 300 sales a month, okay? So then you want to look at like you need to talk about profit margin. You need to talk about how much you make per sale. How much revenue does that bring into your business? And then what then I'm going to try and start asking is and trying to figure out is do can I basically achieve those results for you, or can I achieve even more results for you? And if I think that I can get better results than the next best freelancer or the next best agency or whoever it is on the very specific thing that I'm doing, because obviously you would have come to me for a WordPress e-commerce site, so you already know that you want WordPress. So that means that you want the best WordPress developer that you can get a hold of, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you want me more than anyone else because I'm the best option in this realm. You've come to me. I've not reached out to you. You've come to me. We start talking about the business figures, and I start then thinking, can I help you achieve these results? And if I can, I obviously want to be paid a slice of that result.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where we would start the conversation, thinking about the value that the business value I can provide, the tangible business value that I can provide, and also the intangible value of hiring me specifically. And then I would then create a price based on that. And then also I'd think about what would the next best freelancer potentially charge? Would if it's incomparable, but if they would only charge £10,000 and I'm saying I'm going to charge £50,000, even if you really want me, you're probably not going to go with me because it's 5 times more. But if you really want me, you might pay 2 times more. You might pay 20,000. So there's a lot of different things
Mm-hmm.
that come into play to create a true value-based price, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's also possible that we could get customers who might not be very comfortable with sharing their numbers or profit margins. So
Exactly.
they would just be difficult. They would be difficult customers in the sense that they would not provide you all these figures, which would help you calculate what value you're providing them. What is your way of going about it?
Yeah. So if you've not, it depends. It depends on your situation. So if you want a cash flow boost, and the client's not value perceptive, just give them a really great day rate and just do the work. Don't even attempt to try and do it, because you will come across people like what you've just said who are not perceptive to value-based pricing. They either don't have the figures or they don't want to share them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you need the money and you just want to increase your cash flow, then just give them a day rate. Just make sure it's a good day rate. Consider the value of hiring you in that day rate. So think, am I a really good developer? Am I a really good designer? Am I a really good writer? Am I better than the other options that they can get? Then put your price higher than average,
Mm-hmm.
and just put it out there and just do it on a day-to-day basis. Like, I'm not, the thing that I talk about in the book is I'm not against using any methodology. I think that all of them are useful, and you can mix and match as well. That's the overriding feeling of my book. I think, like what we touched on right at the beginning, like the fallacy of pricing projects is that there's an exact equation that everyone can follow, and that's just not the case. I can't tell you to price a project exactly like me, because you're not me.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying, you need to consider the value of hiring you specifically, the value of your service to the client, and and the value of the project, your contribution to the project on a singular basis each time. And then sometimes you can't force a pricing methodology on a project either. So like what we just touched on then, some people don't have the metrics that you need to do what we call a value-based price.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what a lead costs them. They haven't got that information. And if you just try and force that methodology on a project, and you need the money, you need the project, you're going to lose the project.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. It's not really like one size fits all thing.
Exactly.
You obviously have to go case by case, and the way that you do it is ask all those good questions. And obviously, the way that you develop the ability to answer those questions is through experience.
Yeah, and that's the main thing about, I think, getting better at pricing projects is being able to ask the right questions and get the right information that you need, because sometimes people might start as a bit of a brick wall and you're not getting much information back, but the more that you talk and the more that you collaborate on a partnership level, as opposed to I'm trying to get as much money out of you as I can, and you ask the questions that are more, friendly and more direct questions, but not to the point of it coming across as it's like a competition. Make it come across as if it's a partnership, and you really align the incentives of the freelancer and the client, right? So talk in terms of when you do well, I do well, and that's what I want. So when you're talking on that level and asking the questions in that manner, that's how you get the information that you need to give a good price that works for everyone.
And when you give out this pricing for a particular project, do you also give them separate tiers or separate packages, or it's just like, this is the price that I have, either take it or leave it?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the project again. Like, I know a lot of people say always give options, and I agree that options are a really useful tool. But again, I don't think you should force putting project options into a proposal if it's not relevant. So let me try and give you an example. So let's say that you want to do a pre-project, right? Like a bit of a discovery project. Someone comes to you and they say, I have this project that I want to attempt, but I'm not really sure how to go about it. So then you might say to them, well, let's, have a strategy session or a couple of strategy sessions, and we'll write the brief together. So I think in that respect, really, you don't need any options. You only need the one option. So you might say, this strategy session, it gives you an outcome of a technical brief that you can then get quoted on. And you'll just say that's going to cost $5,000 or whatever. You might just want to give one option there. But then where I think options work well is, for instance, let's say that you're going to build a website for someone, and you might also say option one might be, yeah, you're going to build a website. There's the website, hands off. This is on you now. Then the second option might be, we'll do 6 months worth of maintenance and changes and things like that. And then the third option might be 12 months or something like that. So options are useful in certain situations because it allows the buyer to compare your options rather than compare you to another service provider. It gives them something a bit more to think about, but that's, the business then still comes to you. But then again, like what we talked about with forcing pricing methodologies on projects, I don't think it's always useful to force options on projects either. Sometimes just, giving a direct price for exactly, a specific thing is works well as well.
Mm-hmm. And before we move to the questions about building the audience on Twitter, I just had one last question about this. So when you send out your price to the customer or to the client, and if they say no, or they come back to you with some negotiation, they'll make a different offer. Do you negotiate, or like, how do you go about it?
Rarely negotiate. Again, it depends on how much I want the job, how much I need the work. Most of the time nowadays, I don't need the work. So I take it on the basis of, is this going to be a really fun project? Do I really want it? But yeah, I mean, I would say I negotiate on maybe 1 out of 20 projects. And even then it's always primarily on terms rather than on price. In fact, pretty much always on terms, never on price. So let's say if someone comes in and says, I've given them a £10,000 price, they might say, oh, can you do it for 7,500? and then they probably expect me to counter with, 9,000 or something like that. But once I've given a price, that's my line in the sand essentially. But what I will negotiate on, if I think it's going to be useful and I really want the project, is the terms of how that's paid. So let's say originally I've asked for 100% payment upfront, and the client then tries to counter my price by, with their own price, a lower price.
Mhm.
What I'll offer as a token gesture then to show that I'm a reasonable person and I do want the work is say, well, what about if we structure this payment? So what about giving me 50% upfront and then 50%, on completion? So then you're still showing that you are willing to negotiate and you're being reasonable, and you're offering something to them, but you're not reducing the perceived value of your original offer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, some very good strategies over there. I've also used some of them in the past, and it's widely successful. When negotiating something doesn't always mean that you always have to negotiate on price. Sometimes it also happens that you can reduce the scope of the project so that you can still keep the price the same.
Exactly.
So yeah, it does make a lot of sense.
I think another good one as well is, let's say if you might say, let's say it's a £10,000 project, but then you might say, if you pay everything up front, I'll give you 10% off, because obviously then that saves you a bit of time creating 2 invoices, and it gets you the money up front and it adds a layer of safety. So yeah, like what you said, reducing the scope, offering a discount for payment up front, and negotiating on terms rather than price are 3 really good tactics to use.
Mm-hmm. We can move to the to the Twitter part now. So
Cool.
in the past some time, you've actively invested in building an audience on Twitter, and you've been widely successful with it. You already have more than 10K followers. Like I've been doing it for past 6 or 7 years, and I still am only at 4,500. So I commend you on that. And I would just wanted to get an understanding of how do you actually go about writing your tweets, because most of your tweets, they are like they're straight to the point. They are mostly insights. You don't really prefer sharing anything about your personal life. You would rather share things about related to business. You would either give insights, or you would also share the numbers of how your businesses are doing.
Yeah.
So could you just give us an understanding of how do you go about writing those tweets?
Yeah. So I normally batch writing the tweets. So I use a tool called Hype Fury, which allows me to write tweets without having notifications going off and distracting me. So I normally write like maybe 3 or 4 in advance of the day. So the first thing I'll do in the morning usually is, write 3 or 4 tweets. But yeah, with regards to the topic and the structuring of the tweets, I've found that people don't really care that much about your personal stuff until you've got to a certain level. So yeah, I think it's really important to be super niche about what you talk about until people care enough to, want to know a bit more about the rest of your life, essentially. And I know that sounds kind of sad, but it's just how it is, I guess. If I'm going to start tweeting about what books I've read when I have 100 followers, not a lot of people are going to care. But if I start tweeting about the books that I've read at 10,000 plus followers, then people might think, oh, that's really interesting because it's coming from someone that I already know and trust. So yeah, that's kind of how it all went for me.
And since you have reached this point now, are you going to start sharing more of your personal life on Twitter?
I mean, I do share little bits. I share a lot of like personal photos on Instagram and stuff like that. So if people want that kind of thing, they can find it on there. I use Twitter in slightly different way to what I use Instagram, but I think eventually there will be some kind of overlap and a bit of a blurring of the lines. At the minute, Twitter's like super professional and super like business focused, whereas Instagram's more personal. Like I will promote some business things now and again, but it's more, for my personal record of photos of, family stuff, holidays and things like that. But I think eventually there will be some kind of crossover, yeah. But only when the time feels right, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I can completely relate to that. I also use a similar strategy. So Instagram for me is basically my travel blog. I usually post my travel pictures over there, and in the stories I would share personal stuff.
Yeah.
And on Twitter I would only share and use fleets, which is basically the clone of stories. It gives you that opportunity that you can be more lenient in that. So I would say in the past some time, the amount of personal stuff that goes on Twitter has been more because of fleets, but I would still like to keep my timeline very focused on what I do.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's nice to have that separation, I think, as well, and using them in kind of different ways. And then like what we touched on before, if people are interested in you, they will automatically go to the other social media as well and follow you. Like I've noticed that a lot, especially on LinkedIn. A lot of people who found me on Twitter have then followed me on LinkedIn, and some on Instagram as well. So yeah, that makes sense.
And so when how do you actually decide what you want to tweet about, or do you dedicate some time to just writing tweets, or you just think of if something strikes and then you just go out and tweet it? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, what I've kind of got is like a scratch pad of tweets. So when I'm like out walking, I think of a lot of ideas and just write them down into the notes, like really rough ideas for tweets. And then I'll normally, like what I said before, like get into Hype Fury and sit on a morning and just write like maybe 3 or 4 for the day. Or sometimes I might not write any and just, just leave it blank. But I think a lot of people think that I've got like hundreds and hundreds lined up, and I haven't. I normally do just like, 3 or 4 per day if I'm in the mood to write tweets. But yeah, I mean, sometimes I do them off the cuff. Sometimes you'll think of one, you're like, that doesn't need any more work. That works as it is, and you just put it out there. But yeah, most of the time I actually sit and try to like at least schedule 3 or 4 before I stop doing it.
And that is so relatable. The way that it works with me is also I usually do not get any ideas to write something when I'm actually on Twitter. But it's only when I'm doing other things like maybe taking a walk, going for a run, taking a shower, or also when I'm just about to sleep. My mind is kind of in this. It's like in this hyper focused state when I'm just about to go to sleep. And I would usually get those kind of ideas there or also while I'm just doing something like at work when I'm designing something, or I have an idea, I'm working on something. I would realize that this could make this is a good insight. I could maybe share this, and whenever that happens, I would just take a rough note of it on my phone, because phone is something which is very easily accessible to me at that point of time. And what I would also do is that when I get to my computer, I would then just take all those ideas that I had on the sketch pad and just make it into a very concrete format so that it's very consumable. And also I have to make sure that I pass it through Grammarly so that the grammar is also right.
Yeah, I do that as well sometimes.
I've also, I mean, in the past, sometime I've been thinking that I might also want to give it a try to a scheduler like Hype Fury, but it's just something that I've never really. I mean, I have thought about it, but I never really got to it. And
yeah, I think it's worth trying, because I think consistency, like what everyone says, is the thing that gets you traction and noticed and in people's minds. So having a tool like that, it doesn't have to be Hype Fury. Obviously, you can schedule tweets natively as well now. Hype Fury is just what works for me. But yeah, I think it's a really good practice to batch stuff, whether it's tweets or emails or anything else.
And I've also noticed with Hype Fury that it also retweets your better performing tweets, right? And so what happens is like most of the tweets that would get a lot of attention on Twitter would also be like one-time things. Say, for example, you joined a new job, or I took a new job, I got married, and those are like the one-time tweets, but that get a lot of traction. And obviously, you don't want to
Yeah,
retweet that, right? So does
yeah.
Hype Fury automatically picks the best performing ones, or you actually have to go and sit and tell Hype Fury that this is the kind of content that I want to be retweeted?
Yeah, so it has like this thing called evergreen tweets where you kind of pick out the ones that you want to be in that group. So if you've not scheduled a tweet, it will pick one from that at random and retweet it. So it's within your control. It's not automatic at the moment anyway.
Yeah, that's great because that would have been a disaster. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine me tweeting about getting married, and then after a few months, it gets retweeted again, and then people are like, "Why is he sharing this news?"
Married again.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great session. I've really enjoyed talking with you, and I think we only have a few minutes left now. So before we end the stream, I just wanted to ask you one last question, which is, what piece of advice would you like to give to fellow freelancers or those who are just starting out with freelancing?
Yeah, I think my parting advice would be to treat freelancing like a business, and instead of just putting all your efforts into learning the skill that you're selling, learn how to run a business as well. So by that I mean read business books, think about marketing, think about where your opportunities are going to come from, and things like that. So, it's not always the best developer that gets paid the most money. It's the good developer that knows how to market their service as well. So yeah, that's how I would. That's the advice that I'd give to freelancers starting out.
Mm-hmm. Good, solid piece of advice. All right, so we can now finish the stream. It was a pleasure talking to
Cool.
you, getting all those insights, and it also took me back to my freelancing days. I mean, I just stopped it 1 year ago. I was a full-time
Hmm.
freelancer for about 3 years before that, and I also used to do part-time freelancing before I became a full-time one. So it's been great talking about those things again. It just refreshes all the memories. I wish you all the good luck with the work that you are doing. I hope that you have another phenomenal year. This time I got that word
Thank
right,
you.
phenomenal. It's always difficult to pronounce.
No, thanks a lot, Darshan. It's been a really good conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Have a great day ahead, Tom.
You as well. See you
Yeah, see
later.
ya.
See ya.